Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech and Talk Shorts. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope all of you have some time off, either now or in the near future for school or work or whatever, and are enjoying the Tekken 8 demo. So today I just want to talk a little bit about some updates as well as my overall Tekken 8 demo impressions. I think the demo is slightly different from the closed beta test, so there's some new things to be talked about. But I want to start with kind of a big personal update that I'm pretty excited about, and I think will have an impact on this channel, which is, for those who don't know, I've suffered from hand pain, chronic hand pain, for years and years now. And this week I finally had an appointment with a new doctor who gave me a treatable diagnosis. So prior to this doctor's appointment, I've always had non-treatable diagnoses, which are basically like you kind of have to live with it and manage it for the rest of your life. But this doctor actually gave me a treatable diagnosis, and since starting this kind of new treatment routine, which takes a couple hours every day or whatever, things have been significantly better over the course of just a couple days. This is really, really exciting for me. I've played more Tekken in the past couple days than I have in the past couple months combined. So I finally feel like things are getting back on track. So hopefully that should mean more content, probably more Tekken tips videos. I know those have been kind of sparse, so we'll hopefully get those uploaded a little bit more frequently. But yeah, that's kind of a huge personal update for me. It can mean I can start going back to tournaments again, which is something I love to do. And I guess the bit of advice that I've learned, I'm not fully recovered yet, but I think this is still relevant advice, which is just like, if you have the means and you have the time, and this was a 3-year process for me, but looking back, finding a doctor who takes a condition you have seriously or whatever, and who's knowledgeable about potential unusual or like more different sources, and is willing to talk about a real path to actually getting better, I think that's invaluable. So okay, let's move on to the Tekken 8 demo, which I'm assuming many of you have been playing because it's out not only on PS5 but now also on PC and Steam. And the Tekken 8 demo gives us the first chapter in the story mode. It gives us Super Ghost Battle, and it gives us like the first probably 45 minutes of the arcade quest mode. And so let's kind of go through each of these one by one and talk about it. Oh, and last thing, they give us Paul, Kazuya, Jin, and Nina as playable characters. So it's a demo, 4 characters. I was a little disappointed, but I've been convinced that it's a demo. I think that's fine. So getting into the story mode, I think from the first chapter, what I absolutely loved is just how great the like cinematic feel is in battle. In battle, like the stages are like exploding, the music is crazy, there's like dialogue options, there's special interactions. It is so good, and it's so much better than Tekken 7, where the stages were more or less the same. It's like the Times Square stage is like an apocalyptic. It's only something that could happen in story mode because, to be honest, I had no idea what was going on. I was just kind of mashing buttons. But it really was a cool feeling, and it really did bring an immersive experience more so than I think past Tekken story modes, especially Tekken 7, which I think everyone agrees the story mode was whack. And also the other thing I really liked about it is the hard difficulty in story mode was pretty good. Like, I think it was challenging enough for like, I mean, I'm not saying it was that hard, but I think it was a pretty fun difficulty. The medium and easy, I think, were both pretty well balanced for what they are. And the interaction with the AI Kazuya just felt awesome. Like, for example, every down forward 2 counter hit he hit, immediately perfect electric. And even though he didn't do a full combo, just like seeing that sequence from the AI was super epic and super awesome, knowing like how hard it would be for a human to do. So I love that. The thing I didn't love about the story mode, and I'm not much of a Tekken story aficionado, but in general, I found the like different graphics to be a little bit jarring. So I think there's three different types of graphics. There's cinematic, like purely cinematic graphics. There's in-game cinematics or like in-game engine cinematics, and then there's the actual gameplay itself. And I found the swapping between those three, which happens fairly often, to be fairly like jarring, especially compared to something like Mortal Kombat 1, or just other AAA games. So in other AAA games, I think you experience that a lot less. Obviously, it's a fighting game, so the standard, I guess, is a bit lower. But I would have actually preferred if the cinematics were toned down a little bit in terms of how they look to better match kind of the in-game stuff, because it was, at least for me, a little bit too jarring. But overall, I enjoyed my experience with the chapter one, and I'm curious to see where it goes from here. I'm also curious how long the story mode is, because it feels like very grandiose and it feels like a lot of effort went into it. So hopefully they can get like a 4 or 5 hour experience out of it, but I guess we'll have to see. And so then the next thing was Arcade Quest. So Arcade Quest, I guess, is like their tutorial mode. Maybe they'd argue it's like their tutorial mode, but it's basically like an offline battle mode trying to simulate what it was like to be in the arcade. So there's like different characters who represented different people from the arcade era. I definitely remember um, some similar experiences when I used to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and arcade, where there was like the really serious guy, and then there was like the casual guy who was like just having fun with everyone. But yeah, I don't know. I think how novel the mode is currently is like fueling a lot of the excitement. I think over time we'll have to see how it progresses, right? Because I guess there will be many different arcades as you rank up. And I think the big question will be is how difficult does it get? How in depth do these tutorials get? Because currently the tutorials are essentially press a button, great job. Press another button, great job. And it's just like, that's not a tutorial mode. Even beginners, I don't think they think that's a tutorial mode. Like, especially if you compare it to like Guilty Gear Strive or something where there's actual in-depth information about the fighting system that you'd apply in a real match. Like, I think most people who want to learn Tekken, and this is purely speculation, but I think most people who want to learn Tekken, they know you can press a button and an attack will happen. Like, I don't think that needs to be part of a tutorial, or like a key part of the tutorial, which it seems to be. So, if the tutorial aspects of that game mode really progress into something more complicated, so instead of an air combo being two buttons, you get like a full actual combo, or instead of a block punish being like this one very scripted event, it's a mix up scenario. I think that has some potential. But in the meantime, I think that mode was kind of fun, but we'll have to see how it progresses once you get to different arcades and start rising up the ranks. And then finally is Super Ghost Battle, which. So I think there's two different aspects that I want to break down. One is training your own ghost, and one is fighting versus other ghosts. So fighting versus other ghosts, you had this like small room with a bunch of different characters, and including Mishima Star's ghost, I guess, which I have to assume, and I think, or I hope this is the case. I really hope this is the case that the ghosts in this room were toned down. Like they were not fully fleshed out ghosts, or they were not like really as strong as they could be. Because I played the Mishima Star Ghost, who I know is a very good player and who is like Tekken King rank in the Ghost system. I was like, had my eyes closed. I was like talking to my friend, and I just won. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And like I was using Paul, who I don't even use that much. And so This also brings up another concern, which is if you play CPU battle, just like the normal versus CPU battle, and you select ultra hard, it's still not that hard. I was very disappointed in this because they advertised this like AI technology of like, oh yeah, we're bringing in the newest AI tech to make these CPUs and these ghosts. So I was really expecting ultra hard difficulty to actually be ultra hard. Kind of like how Street Fighter 6 level 8 CPU is genuinely like difficult. Unfortunately that wasn't the case, and unfortunately the ghosts were also relatively weak. So and when I say relatively weak, I don't mean like, oh, anyone can beat them. I mean like relative to how hard they would be if you're playing the actual player. So if you're actually playing Mishima Star, there's no way you can just beat them like kind of mashing with Paul. But I think that likely those ghosts are not as strong as they will be in the final game. And I also think the reason why they didn't spend that much time on the ultra hard CPU is because they're probably saying, look, people aren't going to play against the ultra hard CPU. They're going to play against Nee's Ghost. They're going to download, Arslan's Ghost and then try to play against them. And if that's the case, and if the ghosts really are way better in the final build, when people have thousands of hours into the game, then I'm super excited about it and super ready for it. If not, then I think this feature was definitely a little bit overblown, unfortunately. And I'm a little bit disappointed, but again, we have to see the final build. And then lastly, the train your own ghost experience is really fun. I do hope they tweak it a little bit. So to get into a little bit of technical talk, I think what they're doing is they're basically, yes, they said fast queue learning, but I don't know how they're setting up the algorithm itself. What it feels like to me, which this is not queue learning, but what it feels like to me is they have some distribution, like probability distribution over moves in different scenarios, and all they're doing is like shifting that probability distribution as you're in different scenarios. Which hypothetically, if the algorithm was really, 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 really good and robust, then it would work. It should hypothetically work amazing. But it did feel a little bit like it did feel a little bit like just random samples, or like they were just like picking moves suit kind of out of a hat, but the hat is determined by the situation a little bit. But it didn't feel too natural, and I played about probably 10 or 12 matches in a Paul mirror match, as Paul against my ghost, and it definitely does pick up some like pretty good nuances. I'm wondering how it would be after like 100 matches. But initial impressions are it's good, but it's not quite great yet. And that might just be about time put in. So again, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like this whole episode is the we'll have to wait and see episode. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for listening. I'm curious how you guys or how y'all are enjoying the demo. Feel free to podcast, comment, or tweet at me and let me know. And I hope you all have a good bit of time off if you do. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good one.